Now, I've done a couple of topics on my channel here, talking about acquisition land, acquisition in view, and then my advice on these kind of titles and this kind of land. And in most of these videos, I kept, even the video I talked about freehold land in Ekpe also, I kept mentioning about perfecting your documents, perfecting your documents. So in this episode of Meet the Property Guy, we'll be talking about the governor's consent, GC. Sometimes that's the abbreviation we give it, governor's consent, and why this particular document is very, very important, particularly when you are investing here in Lagos. Now, in case you are coming across a video like for the first time, this is Meet the Property Guy property channel, and this will discuss everything real estate for those who are starting to invest, for those who have been investing, and for those who have invested in Lagos already. We share tips, guides, and advice about how to protect your investments, how to start your investments, and also how to make returns from your investments. So after watching this particular guide, this particular video, I also suggest you also go to our previous episodes, previous topics. There are so many topics I've talked about: land titles, land documents, shortlets, mistake by investors, land scams, property developers in Lagos, and so on. You are definitely going to learn a lot. I'm going to promise you that. So let's go into the topic: the governor's consent. The governor's consent title. Why is this document, why is this title so important for properties in Lagos? I'm not really a big fan of acquisition land, approved acquisition land here in Lagos. It's because a lot of you guys, a lot of investors, let me put it that way, a lot of you investors are on the assumption that we buy this land, we collect the document from the real estate company, and that's it. It ends there. But for acquisition land, particularly acquisition land in Lagos, Ibejuleki, Elerongbe, Eleko, where is acquisition again? Akodo, where is acquisition again? Any part of Ibejuleki that even Sokotedo, acquisition in Sokotedo, you can't just buy, collect your documents and leave it there. You have to perfect. It's very, very important. You have to perfect, and that's where the governor's consent title or the governor's consent document comes in. Now, there are a couple of ways for you to obtain a governor's consent title, and we are going to start with that. How does a property qualify for you to obtain a governor's consent? Now, the first process or the first way a property qualifies for governor's consent is if that property already has a CFO. So if a real estate company is selling a property and the company themselves have done a CFO on their name on that property, once you are bought from the real estate company, you can decide to obtain a governor's consent in your name, because the CFO on that property is the company's name. So you need to have a document with the government that reflects your own name. That's where the governor's consent comes in. Now, it is not compulsory that there has to be a real estate company. An individual might also own a property, do a CFO in his own name. Then you buy from the individual. But you have to remember that the CFO done or on that property is on that previous owner's name. So you also need to have a document with the government that also show you are the new owner of that property. That's where the governor's consent comes in. So any property that have CFO, once that property have changed hands, is governor's consent you can obtain on that property. You yourself cannot obtain CFO. So I have some investors that always ask me that question, like, okay, after I buy this property, will the company also give me my CFO in my own name? They won't give you CFO in your own name. What the company will give you is a deed of assignments that contain the CFO file number. So with this deed of assignment and CFO file number, you can now obtain a governor's consent. Hope it's clear. If it's not clear, it's fine. Just come to my DM or drop a comment. Now, the second way you can obtain a governor's consent is if the property previously have a governor's consent. Now, how is it possible for me to do a governor's consent on a governor's consent? Now, it's possible. Now, let's assume A real estate company buy a property from a family. The name of the real estate company is real estate company A. Now, they bought these 20 acres, and then a client, an individual named client B, bought two plots of land from the real estate company. Remember, the real estate company A are the one that did the CFO after they bought from the family. So after the client B bought the two plots out of the 20 acres which the real estate company bought, because the CFO covers the 20 acres. So the client B went to the Lagos State government and then obtained a governor's consent on the two plots on his own name, client B, to show that out of the 20 acres the government issued CFO on, two plots have changed hands to client B. So on that two plots now, the government will not be referencing the real estate company anymore. They'll be referencing client B, because they are aware that the property has changed hands. Now, client B has a governor's consent in his own name, client B. So your own name is client C. You now bought this property, these two plots of land from client B that have a governor's consent on his own name as client B. So you, as client C, also have to go back to the government that, sorry, these two plots that you gave governor's consent on for client B has changed hands to me, client C. So the government are now also going to give you a governor's consent in your own name. So on that property, they are not going to be referencing client B again. They are also going to be referencing you, which is the new owner of that property, which is client C. So in the future, if you also sell that property to another person named client D, client D will do the same thing and go back to the government that, sorry, this property that the initial owner collected the governor's consent as client C have changed hands to me, client D. So the client D will also get a governor's consent, which means that CFO can only be issued and signed once by the government, while any other subsequent transfers, each party, each person will be applying for a governor's consent. So if a property with a governor's consent is transferred to a new owner, the new owner is also going to be doing a governor's consent, not CFO. So that's the second way. If you don't understand, don't worry, come to my DM or drop a comment. Now, the third way which you can obtain a governor's consent on a property is if a property have already been gazetted. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people feel like, a gazette land, I don't need to do anything again. For where? Is the gazette in your name? The gazette is not in your name now. For example, if there is 200 acres of land in community A, and then out of the 200 acres, the government took 100 acres and gave the community 100 acres. So the gazette will be in the community name that 100 acres have been excised to so community, dated so volume and so page of the gazette. Now, for that 100 acres that the government release, the only people the government recognize is the baale and the head of the families regarding that 100 acres that they have gazetted. Now, if you buy from the family, you buy 20 acres, you buy 10 acres, you buy 1 plot, you buy 2 plots, you buy 3 plots, the government they don't know you. Despite the fact that the family have signed a deed with you, the government still don't recognize you, because it's the family and the community that the government release that land to. So if in the future the government want to acquire out of the 100 acres that they release to the family, they are not going to be communicating to you. They'll be communicating with the head of the families, head of the community, because those are the people they give a gazette. So this time around, as you have bought out of that part that the government released to the family, you will now go back to the government that, okay, out of these 100 acres which you guys release to the family have sold 2 plots to me, or 3 plots to me, or 5 acres to me within the gazetted area. So regarding this area, if there's anything about it, you guys should be referencing and communicating with me, not the family. So then the government are going to give you a governor's consent. So if in the future they want to acquire, they want to do anything on that property, they are going to be referencing you directly regarding that property, not the family, because they are aware that the family have transferred ownership to you. That's why the governor's consent is important. Now, the family themselves can do a C of O after the government have given them a gazette. So after they have done the C of O, they can also now sell, and when they sell to you, you can also do a governor's consent. So it's either way. You can do a governor's consent on the gazette, or the family can do C of O on the gazette, and then you can do a governor's consent on their own C of O. Either way is fine. But it's also important that when you buy a gazette land, particularly in Lagos, you go for governor's consent. But that's the only way the governments are going to recognize that those parcels of land is yours. To them, it still belongs to the family. Now, what about if the land is excision? Alright, don't let me talk about excision yet. Now, another way that you can apply for governor's consent is if the land is a government allocation, like what all these real estate companies are doing with IDERA scheme, all the real estate estates that the government have allocated land for at IDERA scheme, or the estate that the government have allocated land for at the Aito scheme, and all the different residential schemes in Lagos where the government have allocated some land to real estate companies, and then they have a government allocated C of O. When you buy in these estates, you can also do or apply for a governor's consent. Now, what a government allocation means that this land belongs to the government, but the government sold this land to either the company, the individual, or whoever. So it's legit. So you can also do a governor's consent on it, so that on that particular property, the government are not going to be referencing the company anymore. They are going to be referencing you about the 2 plots or 1 plot of land that you bought there. So from the different explanations about the governor's consent, you can see how extremely important this document is, particularly here in Lagos. You see, why I always repeat particularly in Lagos is because the Lagos state government are the biggest land grabbers in Nigeria. These people are never afraid to take land. Mention any community here in Lagos, the Lagos government have an history that they have taken some plots or some land there. And it's not ending. They are still going to take a lot of land. The Fort Mainland Bridge is still there. They are still going to take a lot of land. The proposed airport is still there. They are still going to take a lot of land. They are taking a lot of land in Ekpe right now for agriculture and tourism and paying off a lot of families. So Lagos state government are always constantly taking land. That is it. So the only way you can secure your property, secure your investment, is for you to ensure that the government recognize you as the owner of that property. And the only way they can recognize you as the owner of that property is for you to have a governor's consent in your name. As simple as that. Now, what if the land you bought is excision in view or excision? How will you apply for get or obtain a governor's consent on these lands? Now, is relatively still easy for you to apply get governor's consent on a land that is excision, as long as the place they are allocated for you is still within that excision. You see, most of the excision land in Eleko, in Bajuleki and so on, these communities are waiting for the government to gazette the excision so that they can now start applying for C of O or governor's consent on it. But trust me, most of these excision, the government will never gazette it. They wait till their kingdom come. Lagos state government will not excision, they will not gazette it. And the reason why they are not going to gazette this excision is because some of this excision they are still going to cancel it, they are still going to revoke it. They are still going to lay an embargo on it. Like I said before, Lagos state government that are the craziest land grabbers on earth. So if a land is excision, you have 2 options, 2 choices. You either wait, just like everyone is doing, wait for whenever the government are ready to gazette it, and then after they have gazetted it, then do your consent. Or just go straight up to the government that, okay, this land is excision, I don't want to wait, just give me government allocation on this property. They will give you. So it's just a matter of choice. Do you want to wait or just want to pay off the government? And that's why I keep saying it. Excision land is one leg up. If you know one leg up, it's one leg up. Now, what about excision in view? How can you apply for consent on or get government to recognize your ownership for a property that is excision in view? See, excision in view is government land. I always say that in my videos. It's government land that you bought. Either you buy it from the family or you buy it from real estate companies, and then later realize that the place that was allocated for you is an excision in view. Now, the Lagos State government have been telling a lot of real estate company to come and pay for government allocation. So if the real estate company can pay for government allocation, fantastic. But if this company are paying for government allocation, they are still going to share the cost on you guys, on you investors. Yes, you guys are going to pay more. You are going to pay extra. There is no doubt about it. So, but a lot of real estate companies are reluctant because they sold this land very cheap. They sold this land at like 800k, 750k, 1 million naira for a plot. Buy 6 get 1 free. So how will they go to the government for allocation now and come back and tell you guys that you guys are going to pay 2 million naira per plot for perfection? A lot of people will not agree. So that's why they leave investors to their fate. So, but if you like yourself, know the status of the land that was allocated for you and know what next you have to do to get it perfected, either to government allocation or governor's consent. It's very, very important, because if these lands are not perfected, Lagos State government can always come up with any project anytime. They can say that they want to do railway, they can say they want to do viaduct bridge, they can say they want to do interchange, they can say they want to do anything, and they need some part of that property. So you are only going to be eligible for compensation when they recognize you as the owner of that property because you have a governor's consent. So hope you understand why this document is extremely important right now. So as I've always been repeating, I'm not a surveyor, so don't come to my DM telling me you want to verify a property or something. What I can do, I can introduce you to my surveyor, but I won't do it myself, and my surveyor will charge you. So it's not going to be for free. You can do consultation, you can tell me about the property that you bought, the challenges and everything, but I can't verify if your property is excision or gazette or whatever. It's a job of a surveyor. And for perfection, for people that want to perfect their documents, maybe they bought a CFO land, they want to perfect to governor's consent, they bought a governor's consent land, they want to perfect to governor's consent too, or they bought a gazette land, they want to perfect to CFO or governor's consent. I can assist with that too by recommending, by recommending someone too. I've talked about what the governor's consent is, how you can obtain the governor's consent, the properties that are eligible to a governor's consent. Now, what are the benefits that you get by having a governor's consent? Number one benefit is that you are recognized by the government as the rightful owner of that property, which means that if the government wants to do compensation or anything in taxes too, it's you that are going to be sending it to. Now, the second advantage of a governor's consent is you can use that property for financing. So you want to get the collateral of the bank, you want to get funding at any bank, any mortgages, you can always use that property for it because your document is perfected in your name. The bank will comfortably be willing to finance or fund you because you have a governor's consent on that property. Now, if you also want to sell, it also makes it add value to that property. So maybe you buy a property on Gazette and then you perfect it to governor's consent, you can charge more because you have improved that property. So because of that improvement that you have done on that property, it adds value and also adds your return on investment. So that's why I always say it, just leave this cheap land, all this 5 million, 4 million land, leave it. See, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Just get something that is perfect. Even if it's 300 square meters that you can buy, that is legit, you can perfect it to your name, fantastic. You are always going to make your return. You are always going to make your return. Real estate companies are selling all these excision in view land, excision in possessed land, because a lot of you guys, a lot of you investors are also looking for cheap land. You're looking for 800k land in the Bejuleki, looking for 1 million land in the Bejuleki. That's why let's say companies are also selling this land, and that's why them too, they don't want to perfect. Because ideally, when a real estate company buy a land from the family, they are supposed to perfect the land to CFO before they start selling. But a lot of them have realized that when they perfect this land to CFO and they're selling at maybe 10 million, 12 million, 15 million, a lot of you guys will not want to buy. So instead, them too, they don't want to do the perfection. They buy from the family, sign a deed, and they sell like that. 3 million, 4 million. They sell. So and then they leave you guys to perfect it to yourself if you like. So that's why you must understand as an investor that any property that you are buying, you are going to perfect. There is no two ways about it. So the steps to perfection just differs. If you see CFO, you go to governor's consent directly. Very easy. If governor's consent that is on the property already, you go to governor's consent directly. Very easy. Just that things start to get complex when the land is excision in view. Excision. And you don't know when the government will gazette it. You don't know when the government will release the excision. That's when some things start to get complex. So if you want an easier process for yourself too, so just go for something that has been perfected already. So we have properties that we are selling. We have properties in our portfolio with CFO. We have properties in our portfolio with governor's consent also. And then one of the things that I've been doing recently also is for everybody that is buying a property from me, I also try as much as possible to advise them on the next steps they will be taking to perfect it. And most importantly, I can also assist most of my investors with the perfection too. So it makes it very easy. So you can always know that, okay, once I buy, this is the next thing I'm going to do, which is what a lot of realtors are not really advising or suggesting. You know, companies will tell you that the property is safe from all government acquisition and encumbrances, whereas this property you can't even do a CFO or do a governor's consent on it yet, but it's still excision. Government have not gazetted it yet. So these are very, very important things that you have to take note of. Even some of this excision, the land will fall partly within the excision. The other part will be excision in view. Don't worry, I'm doing an episode after this where I'll be talking about what you should do when you buy a government land, so you can know what to do about that. So I've talked about a lot of complex things. I've tried to make it as simple as I can make it in this video about the governor's consent, but I know definitely that there are still some certain things, some certain aspects that are still a bit not very clear. Some parts that you want me to clarify, some parts that you want me to explain further, some parts that you want me to break down, and some parts that maybe likely you want a one-on-one talk with me for you to understand fully about how your property falls within any of these. So you can drop a comment, you can schedule a consultation with me on WhatsApp. Please just try to send me a text on WhatsApp first before you call. Please just send me a text first before you call, so I can just arrange my schedule better and know when best we can do a call. So you can just reach me on WhatsApp. You can talk, you can explain to you in very simple ways that you can understand about what you should do next about a property that you want to buy or a property that you have bought already. So as even your mom property guy on the planet, your property advisor, your property consultant, I know you have been enjoying my videos. I know you have been finding it educating, and I promise I'm definitely going to be bringing topics here which you guys are going to be learning a lot from. So kindly give us a thumb like, subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything. I think it's free to subscribe. So subscribe to my channel, be a part of my subscribers so that you don't miss any of our coming topics. Thanks once again, and see you next time.